An opinion from the state's top prosecutors adding another layer to the debate over wearing masks in Louisiana. The mask mandate was issued by the governor, but the attorney general believes it's not enforceable. As Mike McDaniel explains, other recent restrictions are also in the spotlight.
Recently testing positive for coronavirus, Louisiana Attorney General Jeff Landry issues an opinion on Governor John Bel Edwards' recent executive order, which created a statewide mask mandate, closed bars, and limited indoor and outdoor gatherings. In his legal opinion, all of it is likely unconstitutional and unenforceable.
These restrictions went into effect as a best practice.
Shortly after issuing the opinion, Governor Edwards defended his order while on an already scheduled radio talk show.
It's unfortunate, but we know we're doing what's right. We know we're doing what we're authorized to do under the law.
While only an opinion, Landry believes the governor's order lacks clarity, even though the vice president backs it.
Governor Edwards, we support your efforts here in Louisiana to slow the spread.
While not discrediting the use of face masks, calling it a good recommendation, Landry is even advising law enforcement agencies, including the state fire marshal's office, to be cautious when responding to face mask violations.
He focused more on the enforcement.
Attorney Harry Rosenberg says he wouldn't be surprised if lawsuits follow.
The question's going to be whether a bar owner that's shut down or an individual who's stopped or given a citation or a fine goes into court and challenges the legality of the governor's order.
While Rosenberg believes the governor would most likely win in court, Edwards is calling on Landry to rescind the opinion, fearing it may undo progress.
But that opinion would potentially lead some businesses and some employers not to follow the CDC guidelines.
Edwards says the opinion is also a reversal from Landry's previous support.
He encouraged Louisianans to follow my directives, said he was united with me in protecting the health and safety of the people of our state.
Mike McDaniel, Eyewitness News.